Welcome to the online class lecture of Professor S.K. Paul, HOD, University Department of English, BRA, Bihar University, Muzaffarpur. Dear students of PhD coursework and PG semester 2 and 3, good afternoon. Today I am going to deliver my lecture on migration and diasporic literature. Migration is a normal and natural movement in animals, birds, and even in human beings. It is an unavoidable part in the development process and has been taking place from the times immemorial. Since the beginning of creation, people have been migrating from one place to another for food and water. This course of migration has not changed. Today, human beings have been migrating in search of better living conditions, resources, and the prosperity. It may be within a nation, a state, or across the nations. Migrations can be willful or forced. Words like expatriates and immigrants are used for migration. If a person migrates willingly, then it falls under the immigration category, while exiles and refugees belong to the expatriate category. S.K. Serene appropriately states migration that leads to separation may be seen as a rebirth in a new place, city, country marked by a new culture, different flora and fauna, new adjustments, and so on. Origin and development of the term diaspora. Etymologically speaking, the word diaspora has originated from Greek word diaspora, which means a scattering or dispersion of the people from their motherland. It referred to the people who immigrated to the conquered land with the purpose of colonization to incorporate the territory into the empire. The term diaspora was first used in the 5th century BC by Sophocles, Herodotus, and Thucydides. The first reference of a diaspora created as a result of exile is found in Septuagint. The word diaspora was first used to refer to the population of Jews exiled from Israel in 607 BC by the Babylonians, and from Judea in 70 BC by the Roman Empire when the Hebrew Bible was translated into Greek. Will Durant gives a description of the Jewish diaspora in the following verse. The story of the Jews since the dispersion is one of the epics of European history, driven from their natural home by the Roman capture of Jerusalem and scattered by flight and trade among all the nations and to all continents, persecuted and decimated by the adherents of the great religions, Christianity and Mohammedanism, which had been born of their scriptures and their memory, barred by the feudal system from owning land and by guilds from taking part in industry, shut up within congested ghettos and narrowing pursuits, mobbed by the people and robbed by the kings, building with their finance and trade the towns and cities indispensable to civilization, outcast and excommunicated, insulted and injured, yet without any political structure, without any legal compulsion to social unity, without even a common language. This wonderful people who maintained itself in body and soul has preserved its racial and cultural integrity, has guarded with jealous love its oldest rituals and traditions, has patiently and resolutely awaited the day of its deliverance, and has emerged greater in number stronger than ever before, renowned in every field for the contribution of its geniuses and triumphantly restored after 2000 years of wandering to its ancient and unforgotten home. What drama could rival the grandeur of these sufferings, the variety of these scenes, and the glory and justice of the fulfillment? What fiction could match the romance of the reality? Later, the term diaspora was used to refer to the historical movements of the dispersed ethnic population and cultural development of Israel. In a broader sense, the term diaspora conveys a sense of displacement, and the population finds itself separated from its national territory. The migrated people have a hope or a desire to return to their homeland at some point. Some writers have noted that diaspora results as a loss of nostalgia for a home, as a people reroute in a series of meaningful displacements. In this sense, they may have multiple homes and maintain some kind of attachment for home or native land. Diasporic cultural development often takes a different course from that of the population in the original homeland. With the passage of time, the separated communities differ in culture, traditions, language, and other factors. At present, in a larger semantic field, diaspora includes dispersion and exile. It refers to an ethnic community and people like political and war refugees, immigrants, ethnic and racial minorities. The capitalized word diaspora refers to the Jewish diaspora, while the non-capitalized word diaspora may be used in reference to refugee population of other origins or ethnicities and any community who have dispersed from previous cultures and languages. In English language, the first recorded usage of the word diaspora was in 1876, which was referred to refugees of the Irish famine. The term was widely used in the mid 1950s with long-term expatriates from other particular countries like England, USA, and so on. In modern terms, this is linked with many different worldwide communities. It refers to people who have moved to a foreign country but are connected with their native land. In literary and cultural studies, the use of the word diaspora does not just appeal to sociological conditions but indicates a change in artistic and cultural judgment. Diasporic perspective provides some of the contemporary literature and critical thinking. The current use of the concept of diaspora among the academics, transnational intellectuals, and community leaders which sees the term become become a loose reference, conflating categories such as immigrants, guest workers, ethnic and racial minorities, refugees, expatriates, and travelers. Threatens the term's descriptive usefulness. Diaspora definitions and approaches. There are a lot of arguments between scholars as to what diaspora and diaspora studies denote. Definitions and understandings of the term diaspora get modified as they are applied to new group of people. Diaspora is found between majority and minority communities, natives and non-natives, citizens and foreigners between the countries or within a country, originals and hybrids, and often goes beyond the basic theories of human race. However, before discussing about diaspora, various definitions of the term must be borne in mind. Different dictionaries have provided different definitions regarding diaspora. The Britannica Concise Encyclopedia defines diaspora as the dispersion of the Jews among the Gentiles after the Babylonian exile 586 BC, or the aggregate of Jews outside Palestine or present-day Israel. The term also carries religious, philosophical, political, and eschatological connotations in as much as the land of Israel and themselves. Columbia Encyclopedia also refers to it as a term used today to denote the Jewish communities living outside the Holy Land. It was originally used to designate the dispersal of the Jews at the time of the destruction of the first temple 586 BC and forced exile to Babylonia. The diaspora became a permanent feature of the Jewish life. The 1989 Oxford English Dictionary traces the etymology of the word diaspora back to its Greek root and to its appearance in the Old Testament. In the 1923 edition of Oxford Dictionary, diaspora is defined as referring to any body of people living outside their traditional homeland, revising the former definition of the term as exclusively applicable to Israelites or Jews. And according to the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary, 1995, diaspora is the process by which people of a particular nation become scattered and settle in other countries, especially the diaspora, the Jews who left ancient Palestine. In this way, William Safran points out that the term diaspora can be applied to expatriate minority communities whose members share some of the common characteristics which are as under: they or their ancestors have been dispersed from a special original center or two or more peripheral or foreign regions. They retain a collective memory, vision, or youth about their original homeland, its physical location, history, and achievements. They believe they are not and perhaps cannot be fully accepted by their lost society and therefore feel partly alienated and insulted from it. They regard their ancestral homeland as their true ideal home and as the place to which they or their descendants would or should eventually return when conditions are appropriate. They believe they should collectively be committed to a maintenance or restoration of their homeland and its safety and prosperity. They continue to relate personally and vicariously to that homeland in one way or another, and their ethno-communal consciousness and solidarity are importantly defined by the existence of such a relationship. Robin Cohen and global diasporas rethinks on the issue of movements of population and new forms of ethnic organization. He provides a remedial approach to ethnic and national boundaries that treat them in relation to fixed territorial and political boundaries. His views focus on the causes of migration and settlement and the rearrangement of national harmonies. Cohen refers to homeland in a general sense. The group need not be identified with a nation or a state, but it must constitute itself as a population category, usually a nation or ethnic group. Cohen maintains the definition of diaspora found in classical thought, that is, a scattering of people, but also shows openness to modern or global aspect, explaining the slow decline of the nation state. He lists the following criteria for the term diaspora to be used for a group of people. Robin Cohen, as I've told, on global diasporas rethinks on the issue of movements of population and new forms of ethnic organization. He provides a remedial approach to ethnic and national boundaries that treat. So here now, Cohen lists the following criteria for the term diaspora to be used for a group of people: dispersal and scattering, collective trauma, cultural flowering, a troubled relationship with the majority, a sense of community transcending national frontiers, promoting a return movement. Cohen suggests that the old diasporic practice has become a feature of the new global economy. Cohen's typology constructs the 5 different forms of diasporic community: victim diasporas, labor diasporas, imperial diasporas, trade diasporas, deterritorialized diasporas. Cohen classifies the Jewish, Palestinian, Irish, African, and American as victim diasporas. He categorizes the Indian as a labor diaspora and the British as an imperial diaspora. Chinese and Lebanese are named as trade diasporas. Caribbean, Sindhis, and Parsis in this typology are distinguished as deterritorialized diaspora. Cohen suggests the following features of diasporas and argues how each type of diaspora reveals some of the aspects. In global diasporas, Cohen states some common characteristics of diaspora. Alternatively, the expansion from homeland. Dispersal from an original homeland, often traumatically. Alternatively, the expansion from a homeland in search of work, in pursuit of trade, to a further colonial ambitions. A collective memory and myth about the homeland, an idealization of the supposed ancestral home, a return movement, a strong ethnic group consciousness sustained over a long time, a troubled relationship with host societies, a sense of solidarity with co-ethnic members in other countries, the possibility of a distinctive, creative, enriching life is host countries. Cohen suggests that the difference faced by diaspora groups cause consciousness in other countries. The idea of bonding seems to lie at the bottom of the notion of diaspora. Cohen feels that there might be various factors that gave rise to the diaspora movement for different groups. Within these groups also there might be pull and push aspects for different objectives. At the transnational level, the idea of diaspora homogenizes the population. This population may have migrated to different countries for different reasons, but such a population is not homogeneous. Under local conditions, they may have formed different collective representations of the group and develop different ethnic cultural organizations to promote their ethnic identity. Different gender, class, and political affiliations will have different political projects. According to Susan S. Friedman's diaspora studies is a field struggling with the following issues: the multiple meanings and models of diaspora and migration, the relation of migration and diaspora to conquest, colonialism, post-colonialism, refugeeism, political exile, etc., the heterogeneity of a diasporic groups, especially by gender, class, sexuality, caste, religion, etc., the problematic and potentials of assimilation, acculturation, and transculturalism, nativism, and the hostility of host lands, generational conflicts and continuities in the production or reproduction of culture, the role of language and other cultural practices in migratory experiences, the significance of memory for the production of what Salman Rushdie calls imaginary homeland, the phenomenological dimensions of migration and diaspora, loss between worlds, nostalgia, depression, exhilaration, etc. Diasporas are celebrated as well as criticized, but one needs to be a little cautious of either position. The condition of diaspora as the perfect condition of late modernity. Diasporas are highly democratic communities for whom domination and territoriality are not the preconditions of nationhood is not a rare refrain. In the late modern special argument of diasporas, diasporic communities are said to occupy a border zone where ethnicity and nation are kept separate. In this argument, diasporas are smooth, ideal social formations, happy to live wherever there is an international airport and stand for a longer, much admired historical process. Diasporas refer to a people who do not feel comfortable with their own hyphenated identities as indicated on their passport. Diasporas are people who would want to explore the meaning of the hyphen, but perhaps not press the hyphen too far for fear that this would lead to a massive communal schizophrenia. They are precariously lodged within an episteme of real or imagined displacement, self-imposed sense of exile. They are haunted by specters, by ghosts arising from within that encourage irredentist or separatist movements. Diasporas are both celebrated by late modernity and maligned by early modernity. Jane Evans Brazil defines diaspora, which emerges as a critic of nation and globalization. He feels diaspora are transnational tentacles of nation states, both those of the homeland and of the country of adoption. But diasporas are also global capitalist economic formation created by push-pull factors within national economics, regional trading blocks, and even within the production and labor shifts of the global economy. Talking about the current uses of the term diaspora, Vertovec sums up three meanings for diaspora in his essay, gives three meanings of diaspora. He writes, within a variety of academic disciplines, recent writing on the subject conveys at least three discernible meanings of their concept diaspora. These meanings refer to what we might call diasporal or social form, diasporal as type of consciousness, and diasporal as mode of cultural production. Vertovec believes that the first meaning, that is diaspora as a social construction, is the most common in literature. There is a dense wave of attachment between diaspora and their country of origin. Diaspora communities in the host country usually reconstruct the class, ethnicity, religion, political affiliation, and language that they belong to in their homeland. Hence, diaspora as a social form is based on continued ties between fantasy and reality with a homeland, even though they are separated from their homeland. Vertovec argues that diaspora as a social form is characterized by a relationship between globally dispersed yet collectively self-identified ethnic groups, the territorial states and contexts where such groups reside, and the homeland states and contexts which they or their forebears came. Diaspora as a type of consciousness focuses on describing a variety of experience, a state of mind, and a sense of identity. It is constituted negatively by experiences of discrimination and exclusion, and positively by identification with historical heritage, such as Indian civilization or contemporary world cultural or political forces such as Islam. What Stuart Hall says. Metaphorically, not literally, diaspora does not refer us to those scattered tribes whose identity can only be secured in relation to some sacred homeland to which they must at all costs return, even if it means pushing other people into the sea. This is the old imperializing, hegemonizing form of ethnicity. The diaspora experience, as I intend it here, is defined not by essence or purity, but by the recognition of a necessary heterogeneity and diversity, by a conception of identities which lives with and through, not despite difference, by hybridity, defines modern diasporas as ethnic minority groups of migrant origins residing and acting in host countries but maintaining strong sentimental and material links with their countries of origin, their homelands. In the same way, as Skelton tells that dispersed people are those who preserve their different identities from those of the countries where they have migrated. The concept of diaspora in the contemporary world emphasizes upon constant mobility. He argues that historically diasporas are the results of migration. As industrialists, they are always on the move, seeking better gains. They are not bounded by the economic, political, historical, etc. Limits of any state. This historical nobility and the ability to surpass the institutional functioning of capitalism made them economically successful. Diaspora describes people who are displaced but maintain their connection with their country of origin, and that includes a range of groups such as political refugees, alien residents, guest workers, immigrants, expellees, ethnic and racial minorities, and overseas communications. To conclude, diaspora is often used to describe population which is staying in a land other than their native land, who yearn for their motherland. Those people who belong to this community have begun to make use of this term to describe them. It is an identified group characterized by specific social relationship despite their dispersal. Now we will discuss nature of diaspora in my next lecture. So the remaining part of this lecture will be found in the volume 2 of this lecture, part 2 of this lecture. Thank you. Wait for that.